皆様こんにちは、ビーンです。Hello everybody, welcome back. 2022年2月の21日から28日にかけて開催中の NEXT フェス。こちらで遊べる体験版をいくつか紹介していきます。数々のゲームとライブが無料で楽しめる夢の1週間です。では早速遊んだ一本をご覧いただきましょう。Autopsy Simulator。 こちらのゲームをプレイしていきたいと思います。ニューゲームです。英語でプレイしていくので、ちょっと私もわからないところが多いと思うので、ごめんなさい。申し訳ないですけど、その辺ご了承ください。
No, do not call me anymore. It's none of my business.
何？怒ってるじゃないの？もう二度と電話しないでくれ。これには関係ないことだからって言うんだけどね。Okay, let's check. What's this? No, I should check from the bottom. はい。なんか入ってるかしら。はい。はい。一個ずつ開けて閉めなきゃいけないのこれ。Notes。なんかいろいろあるのかこれは。R で read。Hi, this is Anna Burrows, a reporter for a New Orleans Weekly. I couldn't find you at home. You're not there. I'm beginning to suspect you are avoiding me, Mr. Hammond. Anyway, as you know, we'd like to write a piece commemorating your wife's achievements. We'd be delighted to talk to you about it, along with this note. I will also leave you my card.Let me call you this evening, and I hope to see you at home or at the office regards. リポーターから連絡が来てるんですね。ニューオーリンズウィークリーっていうところから。多分その方から取材関係で来てると思うんだけど、奥様が亡くなったのかな？電話とかかかってきたんだけど、ほっといてくれってことなんだろうね。アップ。はいはいはいはいはい。お酒とかタバコね。はい。あとは calendar, desk fan, ticket。これ全部ピックアップできんだこれってね。Aerosmith. Aerosmith? Do you listen to Aerosmith? How old are you? Teacup.
Oh, the cops from Steven's visit yesterday. I don't think he likes my coffee. He barely took a sip.
コーヒー嫌だったんだね、お客さん。まずかったんじゃないの？シャワシャバのコーヒー出したんじゃないの？シャワシャバの。
How am I supposed to record a lecture for the students now?
これは
Feeling completely broken.
これはちょっとこれはちょっとちょっと良くなったかも。ごめんなさいね。ちょっと私のパソコンがね、高画質に対応してないというか、追いついてない。
I'm gonna go nuts if I don't take my pills.
Go to the bathroom. 左上の方に、お薬を飲みましょうという風に指示が出てるんだけど、トイレに行け？いや、まだまだ見たいものとかいっぱいあるんだけど、テレビとかね、なんか音がする。とりあえず行こうか。バスルームに行ってお薬を飲まなきゃいけないらしいんですけど、ちょっと追いついてないかな、パソコンのスペックが。バスルームここじゃん。
Fuck. Where are my meds?
何をイライラしてる？ここじゃない？ Meds? That's soap. That looks like your meds pill? 赤い。赤い。おっくん。
All right. Now I can go get the camera.
Go to the storage. 倉庫に行けって言うんだけど、カメラをじゃあ取ってくるぞって言うんだけどね。ここだ。
Oh, this place is starting to look like a garbage dump rather than a storage room.
ゴミ置き場みたいになってきてるって言ってるんだけどね、確かに、物が散乱してますね。Get the video camera。カメラをゲッチュしなきゃいけないんだけど、とりあえず、よそ見せずに、目的のものだけ行こうか。あった。
Well, I hope I won't forget to press the record button this time.
ちょっとあなたさ、録画するの Autopsy Room って言ってるけど、手術の内容を録画するこれなんだ ?Wet paint do not enter ここじゃないのか Autopsy Room
Let's move on straight to our deceased.
ちょっと待って。ここ
This is not the time for a smoke break.
タバコ吸ってる場合じゃないよって言うんだけど、分かった。こっちかなここも違う。脳みそ。こういうのが出てくると。おう
I'm wondering how the new tripod is going to work.
三脚のことについて心配してるんだけど、で、あら、こんにちは。あらららららら。Put the video camera on the tripod. 三脚にこう置くということですかね。はい。絵だけじゃなくて現物出てくると思います。
Properly and
start recording. この辺でいい？アングル良くないんじゃない？
Oh, this should be fine. November 21st, 1991. Time 8:43 p.m. Recording for medical students from the University of Missouri. The autopsy is conducted by Jack Hammond. Ladies and gentlemen, it is always worth having a look at the files before conducting the autopsy. That is where we can find all kinds of clues to what could have potentially happened to the deceased.
まあ、要は死因をね、解明するには、ファイル、この情報をいつも見るといいよって言ってるんで見るんだけど、Look at the disease file. I am looking at it.
Mention the rookie mistakes. Oh yeah, that's right. That's my origin to sensify you for a few issues. First, due to the fact that in the process of revealing and securing forensic traces, interference that changes the primary condition happens. The photographic documentation plays a huge role in the entire process of examination. Then, the body needs to be placed on its back on the autopsy table. The pathomorphologist stands on the left-hand side of the body. Third, very rarely but still, the cause of death remains unknown if all the tests come out negative. That's the so-called white autopsy. Now remember that it can also happen.
Put away. なるほど。私
Found on the outskirts of a parking lot near a gas station, where he often begged and insistently offered to clean the windows of cars that were leaving the station. The body was found in a dry field drain. A frequent cause of traumatic deaths among the elderly is the various types of accidents, including traffic accidents or falling down the stairs. The body was spotted by a station worker during the morning shift. At first, he thought that someone had thrown rain boots and a coat in a nearby ditch. It took him a moment to recognize a human body laying on its back. Signs of libation could be found around the dead body. Empty bottles, traces of an inept attempt to start a fire, and a scattered makeshift blanket.
ガソリンスタンドで窓を拭いたりとかね、そういうものでお金を稼いでたみたいなんですけどね。まあ、ある日、このガソリンスタンドで働いてる従業員の人が、まあ、見つけちゃったわけですね、遺体をね、多分この辺でね。で、まあ、いろんな、死因っていうのは考えられるみたいなんですけどね。例えば車にひかれたりとかね、高いところから落ちたとか、転落死みたいなものも考えられると。
The deceased is locally known as Old Toby, homeless and unemployed for at least a couple years. He had gotten into fights and had been bullied by the problematic youth of the town. He was that type of a man who never kept up alcohol, which caused him to be homeless. As a young man working in a suburban coal mine most of his life, he already abused alcohol, and as the time went by, he'd fall into addiction more. That's interesting. Although alcohol poisoning as a sole cause of death among the elderly people is relatively rare, different levels of alcohol poisoning happen among 1 in 4 deaths of elderly people, which may suggest that alcohol abuse is a significant issue in this age group. What is important to note, even though alcohol poisoning does not cause death, it does increase the risk of accidents and their following injuries.
まあ、ホームレス として地元では知られてたみたいですね。で、アルコール中毒だったみたいなんですけれども、彼の年齢を考えると直接的なアルコール中毒で亡くなった可能性もあるし、その中毒によって他の死を招いたっていうこともあると。わかんないよね。何だったんだか。
The body was found at 7 o'clock by Sheriff Matthew Thompson. White male, 76 kilograms, 5'8", age unknown. The deceased is a local homeless man named Toby Chambers. His son runs a hardware store. His wife ran away years ago. Local police have talked to residents, so we know more about the deceased. For example, that he loved drinking, and by no means was abstinent. Such clues can direct us to things that are worth keeping in mind during the autopsy.
かなりの酒飲みだったっていうのが分かったね。
Where are the damn gloves?
今度は手袋はめる？ Find and put the gloves on. どこだったっけ？これが手袋じゃないですかね。違うか。これ全部見れるんだ。Okay, I can check every single gloves. They all look so good. Encouraging my heart attack possibility. 嘘。じゃあ、手袋を探しましょうかね。どこだろう。これかな？これ汚いのがそうなんじゃない？
Now we can get to work. We're going to need the camera. It should be here somewhere.
カメラが必要だ。カメラってどこだろう。
Must have left it in one of the drawers.
引き出しの中に入れっぱなししちゃったんじゃないかなという。引き出しってどこよ？ここ？違うな。ここか？あった。カメラだ。And? I'll take a picture?
Let's follow the procedure and prepare photo documentation. We must follow the top-down rule. Luckily, we don't have to take pictures of the clothes this time. We are only focusing on the body. Let's keep in mind it's all about the legibility, not the perfect frame. Before we start searching for traces on the deceased's body, we have to take a main picture that goes in the files.
Take a top-down view photo of the deceased. Tipped. Camera view って F で。これこの布を剥がせって言うてるの。いや、なんて言って撮ったらいいのよ。はい、チーズ。そんな不謹慎なことやっていいわけ？はい、チーズ。
Voila! Now we move on to the next step. Trace search.
Find a spot on the body to photograph.
We're going to need better zoom here. We're going to need better zoom here. We're going to need better zoom here.
3回も言わなくていいわよ。Let's take a look at.
We're going to need better zoom here.
Better zoom here?
We're going to need better
いやもう
zoom.
すごい乳首。
That's perfect.
いいの？乳首にフォーカスが当たってますけど。B 地区にフォーカスですけどいいんですね。いやもう、いや傷じゃなくて B 地区の方に OK って言われたら、怪我してるとことかこう見なきゃいけないんだけど。
Well, you don't have to stand close to be able to smell a strong odor of alcohol and other discharges.
Yeah.
There's nothing left to say. Old Toby didn't spare himself.
I'm just trying to do my job. You don't have to complain about my physical distance. Yeah, I know I should take advantage of this zoom. いやもうそんなに近づかなくてもいいって。いや仕事してるだけ。笑ってまうわ。すごいズームインできるじゃないドーナツ。フィルムがなくなっちゃうと困るから真面目に行くわ。いや別に怪しいものではないんですけど。Okay, one more photo. これさ、もしかしてさ、センソーシップっていうのがなければ、これもしかしてこの布 布もしかしてここに被さってないんじゃないの？だってそうだよね。検視解剖の時ここに布なんか被せないよね。秘密はこの布の下に隠れているのではないか。ここだ。ズームイン。
People affected by homelessness most often die from accidents, alcohol abuse, or they freeze to death. Unfortunately, both suicide and homicide are also quite common.
アルコール中毒の人ってやっぱしアルコール関係で命を落とすことが多いんだけど、投資したりとかね、事故に遭ったりとか、そういうのもある。で、残念ながら自殺とか他殺のことも可能性としてはあると。
While taking the photos, some entries that could be potentially lethal caught my attention. Let's take a closer look using the magnifying glass.
今度は虫眼鏡的なもので、Begin Autopsy いいのかな？虫眼鏡的なものはいいのね。虫眼鏡ではないと思うんだけど、なんかそれ専門何かあると思うんだけど、おお。Take the magnifier from the tool wheel. ツール、これですね。タブでも開けるんだけど、クリックでも開けるのかな？開けましたね。マグニファイア。これだ。Potential death cause。これ光ってるとこ見るのね。やっぱさっきのは B 地区ではなかったのね。
An old wound that hadn't healed properly. It must have been some kind of burn or other injury. Nevertheless, it has nothing to do with the potential cause of death.
これは関係ないみたいですね。前からあった傷であると。じゃあ手は？
There are frostbite marks all over the deceased's body, although they are most visible on the tips of his fingers. They can be recognized by the very specific color of the skin. However, the hands tell us much more.
凍傷の跡とかあるみたいなんだけど、手を見れば結構いろんなことがわかるみたいですね。頭は？頭見せてくれないの？じゃあ足行こう。
By the look of his feet, I assume Toby must have worn uncomfortable and dinky shoes for quite a while. However, such wounds have nothing to do with his death.
なるほどね。頭は最後か。すごく足に悪いような靴をずっと履いていたという跡も見えると。なんか跡がついちゃってるんだろうね。では、トビーの頭を見てみよ
う。That's something interesting. While making photographic documentation, ecchymosis can be seen on the deceased man's head. The appearance indicates the intravital nature of the wound. We'll come back later to see if everything is all right with the brain. What do we have here?
What do we have here? Examine the marked spot. なんか書いてある。なんだここにこうやってメモを取ってるわけですか？
An old wound that hadn't healed properly. It must have been some kind of burn or other injury. Nevertheless, it has nothing to do with the potential cause of death.
これ一回も聞いたんじゃない？
It could be freezing to death.
もしかしたら寒さで亡くなったのかもしれない。
The condition of the head tells us it could have been a fatal accident.
Fatal fall。もしかしたらどっかから落下したのかもしれない。
By the look of his feet, I assume Toby must have worn uncomfortable and dinky shoes for quite a while. However, such wounds have nothing to do with his death.
悪い靴履いてたんだけど、死とは直接的には関係ない。
Yeah, the odor can be the result of alcohol intoxication.
アルコール中毒なんじゃないかと。こんな風に出るんだね。年50歳っていう。男性、白人、76キロ。173センチ。人権もあったんですね。はい。じゃあ、閉じていいですか？
At this point, that's all I can do based on all traces on the body of the deceased. The inside should tell me much more. Let's move back to the body.
なんだ ?Grab the right hand to perform the examination. 左腕を掴んで、じっくりと見なきゃいけないんですけれども。
Now let's check the level of muscle tension. This will allow us to establish time of death. Let's raise the deceased's hand.
腕をちょっと上げてみましょうっつうんだけど。
That's too low.
That's too low. どういうこと？グイッグイッ これ合わせるのこれ合わせるのこれ。これで確認するのね。筋肉の
And
硬
then let
直
go.
具合を。
The stronger the rigor mortis gets, the greater the resistance from the muscles will be. As you can see, the hand falls loose. The rigor mortis has already subsided. We can then assume that the time of death stated in the files is correct.
ごめんなさい。なんかペチってやるつもりなかったんだけど、ペチってやってしまいました。申し訳ございません。いてってなるよね。これやっぱ布を剥がせるのかな？
Let's grab a scalpel.
メス。スキャルポ。
You can boldly cut with the scalpel. It won't hurt him no more. We always start from the neck and move down towards the symphysis pubis. The incision should be deep.
結構切り込みを入れるみたいなんですけど、この線に沿って、Y で切ればいいのかな？
Next, we separate the skin and prepare to remove the ribs.
これから黒くなっていくよ。みんな気をつけてね。Open the chest using the hand tool from the tool wheel. これか。はい。ちょっと一回閉じますけども大丈夫ね？一回閉じるよ。一回閉じたよ。Okay, it's gonna get very gross. Okay, I open it closed once. Viewer discretion advised. Again. こんなに簡単にめくれるものなのかね？そうそうそう。
The adipose tissue has an intense yellow hue. As you've probably already guessed, we're going to need the scissors.
Need the scissors? Loppers っていうのかな？これか。これがハサミなんだね。私も思いましたよ。誤解症だなって。Remove the rib cage. これをね、これ大丈夫かしら？ Twitch 的に大丈夫かしら？
bone tissues, we are actually interested in two things that you can see at the very first glance. The lack of organ congestion means that, although the deceased was cold, hypothermia wasn't the cause of death.
凍死したわけではないみたいですね。マグニファイア。どれどれ？
We can eliminate freezing as the cause of death.
凍死っていうのは可能性としてはないということで。Take out the lengths and examine them. 肺を取り出すんですか？肺を取り出すの？ Take out lengths. 肺ってこんな感じなのかしら？
The deceased smoked like a chimney. Let's take a closer look. We see widespread black and tarry deposits caused by smoking cigarettes. Despite the tragic condition of the lungs, they are not the cause of death.
かなりヘビースモーカーみたいだったようなんですけれども、直接的な死因とは関係ない。Take the syringe.
Now we need to go grab the syringe.
お注射。
At this point, we need to test the level of blood alcohol concentration of the deceased.
血液中のアルコール濃度を確認しなきゃいけないんだと思う。
We also collect the fluid from the deceased to determine the level of alcohol concentration in the vitreous humor.
ここも
We move on to collecting blood from the heart. 5 milliliters from the left ventricle should do it.
Okay, so getting blood sample from each organ.
Now, we prick the bladder and draw about 10 milliliters of fluid.
Go to mixer.
Keep in mind that you have to set the right time and speed on both knobs before running the centrifuge. Our samples may break into pieces due to the centrifugal force if we set up the wrong coordinates. I myself am terrible with numbers because I suffer from dyscalculia, which is why I always keep the appropriate coordinates at hand.
これ設定間違っちゃうと、なんだろう、細胞かなんか壊れちゃうのかな。Take the notes from the pinboard.Take the notes from the pinboard. これか。しっかりと数字見ないといけないみたいですね。はい。Mixture value, time 40 minutes, speed 75%ですって。40分で、スピードは 75%。おー。40分。ここかなで、スピードは 75% って言ってね。75%. This is 75, right? で、スタートミキサーで E で始めると。Easy Spin.
Damn it. If something goes to shit, it's all the way. That's probably the blown fuses.
はい、来まし
Hold
た。
up. I must have had a flashlight somewhere.
絶対停電になるパターン。Go to the storage ということで倉庫に戻るんだけれども。
And I was hoping to clock out early today.
Storage.
What was that?
It's just a cat, probably.
Where did it go?
You dropped your flashlight. There we go. That's bathroom. That's your office. どうかこっちか。Storage.
Yeah, it's definitely the fuses.
フューズ。よく落ちるよな。
Right goes first.
Right.
Left next.
右最初で。はい。で、次は左。
Voila.
はい、着いた。Turn off the radio. Turn off the radio? あ、こっちから聞こえてくる。
Where's that unbearable noise coming from?
あ、閉まっ
That's strange. I'm pretty sure I closed the window.
窓閉めだと思うんだけどね。どこからだこここっち聞こえる。Oh. It's from this way. あ、これだ。もう、うるさいよ。
Where were we? Oh yeah, the blood alcohol concentration.
Go back to the mixture. そう。これね。普通に忘れてた、私も。
Well, everything is telling us that the BAC, blood alcohol concentration, is high. Hence the smell we're getting from the deceased. Still, to be 100% sure, I have to send the samples to the lab. Unfortunately, I don't have the equipment to conduct a detailed analysis here.
まあこれでアルコール濃度が高いっていうのが分かったみたいなんですけどね。サンプルを送らなきゃいけないみたいなんだけれども。何 ?Take out stomach and examine it. 今度は内臓を取り出すんですか？お腹。
Now let's take a closer look at the stomach.
はい。ねえ、small intestine。小腸ですか？おほー。ちょっとね、ソーセージ的な感じもしなくもないわね。っていうか、ソーセージよね。おー。こんなに簡単に取り出せるものかしらね。おー。おー。なんか奥にあるな。なんだこれ、一定の角度を保ってないとダメみたいですね。
As expected, the stomach has no major external damage. In this case, further inspection is no use. We must cut him open.
なんか内臓は綺麗だったので、これ以上見てても意味ないみたいなので、これ、どうやら切るみたいですね。おお。 これでこれ、どうやって動かすのこれ。左下私は被って見えないかもしれないですけど、これに合わせて動かすみたいですね。タイムリミットはあるとか。新鮮なうちにやらないとってことかな。そんなことないよね。おお。Move closer and examine secretion っていうの
That's interesting. In addition to a large amount of gas and liquid, the stomach also contains small amounts of yellow, grayish food content resembling some kind of meat. Either our deceased hadn't eaten in days, or some of the bulk of his stomach had found a way out.
まあ、なんか肉らしいものが見つかったらしいんだけど、まあそれは、もしかしたら、何日も食べていなかったか、肉を食べたかのどっちかだと。なんか黄色いのがちょっと見えるから、そういうことみたいですね。Take out the heart and examine. Take out the heart?
Oh, it couldn't have been suffocation, could it? Now we need to focus on the cardiovascular system, especially the heart. We take the organ and look it up and down, carefully.
今度は真の像です。真の像、どこを見れば、ここか
At first glance, the heart looks fine.
心臓に異常はなさそうだけれども。
The pulmonary trunk and aorta seem to be in good condition. There are no pathological changes that have contributed to our Toby's death. Well, once we've got the body ticked off, we can move on to the head.
今度は頭の方を見るみたいですね。Take the saw.
Let's take the autopsy saw to cut through the skull to cleave it in two.
頭を切っ
Remember,
ちゃいますよ。
the skull, not the saw.
Skull, not the saw. Oh.
Anyway, we will start dissecting the brain from the occipital lobe. In this way, the brain's dura mater is slowly revealing itself. はい、脳みそ。脳みそ。まあ、綺麗な脳みそ。 After the basic examination, we can see that the cerebral gyri in both brain hemispheres are symmetric and the bumps between them are clear.
あ、なんかあるぞ。
So far, so good. The hematoma seems to have had no effect on the organ we're examining. Let's check its transection. Moving on to the incision.
またこれ、切るんですね。
Holding a knife with a long, narrow blade in your dominant hand, cut the cranial nerves on both sides, pulling the brain towards you.
おー。はい。こういうの本当にやってる人いるんだからすごいよね。わもももももももも。おももも。
Remember, just one small fragment examined under the magnifying glass is enough to dispel or confirm our doubts. We then take the fragment of the brain to the tray and, literally and figuratively, go over it with a fine-tooth comb.
本当にちょっとだけでいいみたいですね。ちょっとだけでいろんなことがわかると。はい。おー。おー。
Just as I initially suspected, we can rule the fatal accident out as well.
take out the trencher and examine it. trencher. take out the trencher and examine it. trench ってなんだろうこれトラチアって何トラチアって何こここれだ。ここのことを言ってるんですね。これは大丈夫みたいね。 状態は
Same
いい
as we
みたい
did with the stomach.
またこれも
External inspection didn't tell us anything. Now the scalpel comes into play.
発音難しいし、もうなんだかよくわかってない
While
です。
cutting a small organ, such as the trachea, we must perform a precise incision. To be able to cut with the very tip of the blade, we must hold the knife as if it was a stylus.
慎重に扱わなきゃいけないみたいですけど。合ってんのこれ。合ってんのこれ。
Ladies and gentlemen, I think we've got it.
Got it? Are you sure?
Based on the report and preliminary documentation, it is safe to assume that the deceased passed out after consumption of alcohol and then fell asleep on his back. Then the gastric contents refluxed and flooded the airways, causing death. That's why we don't forget about the recovery position at dorm parties.
なんかこれだけ見てると結構映像的に良くない気がするので一応
And
戻るん
now
で
it's
す
all
けど。
clear. The death was caused by suffocation.
窒息死ですね。要はアルコール飲んだ後に、横になって、で、それで、詰まっちゃって、窒息死したみたいですね。ありゃりゃりゃ。Go to the general card. General card って何？ここ？ Note down the cause of death. なんてのことだったのかな？死因、ここに書くと。窒息死だったと思うんだけどね。最後ここ、サインか。私のサイン本当に書くの
？It went quite smoothly today. I'm about to get off.
はい。もう仕事終われるね、これでね。じゃあ、戻してあげましょう。お疲れ様でした。はい、閉じます。
In order to bring the chest of our deceased back to its initial state, at least to a small extent, we must take the needle in our hand.
縫い合わせなきゃいけないの？ Okay, let's take the needle.
We sewed the deceased using the baseball stitch technique. This stitching method is very strong and quick to do.
どうやってやるの？急になんかゲーム感出てきちゃったけどね。はいはいはい。So good. There we go. 今度は
I should
電
probably
話
get to that.
忙しいな。
I'm coming.
I'm coming. Here we go. もしもし。
This is Dr. Jack Hanman. Please leave a message.
Good evening. How are you? How are you? How are you?
What the f is that supposed to be? I'll finish the stitching and I'm getting the fuck out of here.
How are you? How are you? I'm gonna finish the stitching and I'm get out of here.
いやいや、急に何あんな、動かしてない私。
What the fuck?
いや、途中まで結構真面目だったのに、なんだろう、途中のあれは。もうちょっとプレイしていけば、この主人公の奥様の話も出てくると思うんだよね、最初にね。話にあったように。最後は、ホームレスの方がね、なぜかいなくなったっていうことで終わりましたけれども、なんでしょうね。途中まで良かったんだけど、最後惜しかったなっていうのが私の中での正直な印象ですね。面白かったですよ。正直な話。勉強になった。わからない言葉とかもいっぱい出てきたので、なるほどなと思いながら、プレイしてました。皆さんはどう思われたでしょうかね。結構グロいシーンが多かったので、ちょっと YouTube には向かないかなとは正直思いましたけれども、非常に勉強になりました。